Hello, my name is David Rist. I'm Head of Development and Training at Hidden Hearing in the UK. We are a retail company, part of the William Demant Group. I've been asked to talk with you today about our use of the IDA tools, particularly how we use the line, the box and the circle in our clinical practice. I joined Hidden Hearing in 2003 from a background in training, development and coaching, in particular performance coaching and behaviour change. A few years back I was trained by the IDA Institute in the use of the tools and became one of the trainers. And since then we've included training of the IDA tools to all of our trainees to be put into place as part of their everyday practice. In this video session today there are 5 key things that I would like to talk about. Firstly, to give you some insights into when and how we're using the IDA motivational tools. To then talk a little bit about the clinical benefits that we see from these and the business results that we've identified. I'd like also to talk a little bit about how our clinical staff have responded to using the tools, and finally just to give maybe any hints and tips that I have of how we've introduced them. So when and how do we use the line? Well, firstly let me talk about how we use it with new potential clients. So after the dispenser has talked through all of the areas of concern, we then present the line as a way of identifying the client's level of importance rating to improving their hearing. So whilst the client has talked about the difficulty they have in hearing in noise, in background noise, they've talked maybe about the difficulty that they have in social situations, perhaps in family conversations, then the dispenser would usually ask them the question, so how important is it on a scale of 1 to 10 for you to improve your hearing in these areas? Usually the dispenser will have the line drawn on a piece of paper, and it tends to have been our practice that the dispenser themselves has put the mark on the line, although very clear as a preference to get the client to do this if at all possible. Once the client has done this, the dispenser's next question then is how well do you think you're able to implement the new behaviour? Now we've slightly adapted that, or our dispensers rather have slightly adapted that to turn it more into a willingness question. So the phraseology which they use is, and if we find that hearing aids will improve your hearing, then how willing are you to use them? And again, the scale of 1 to 10, where 10 being absolute. In using the line tool, we have added one key question. And it's a question that I've really brought into this from my coaching background. And it assumes that the client is not going to rate either a 0 or 1. So if the dispenser sees a rating on the willingness scale of 3 or above, the dispenser would usually say to the client, just out of interest, what stopped you from rating this lower? And what we usually find happens is then the client gives the positive reasons why they should be doing something. So it engages the client in a positive conversation, and they talk positively from a motivational aspect about why they should move forward rather than perhaps why they shouldn't. We also use the line with our existing clients, but that refers very much to the opening question of how are you getting on, and if the client then talks about any lack of satisfaction, then we would use the same process. So how important is it for you right now to improve your level of hearing in the areas that we've already got on our client record? And then the second question gets slightly adapted into how willing are you to consider new technology and new hearing aids. The other thing that we've done in the UK, and particularly I've included in the training of our hearing aid dispensers, is to take the concept and the principle of the line and turn it into what I've called the hearing wheel, where the principle of the line is used for each of the areas of concern identified by the client. I'm not going to cover it now because it's not, strictly speaking, one of the IDA motivational tools, but if anybody would be interested in that, I can send you an extract from the British Society of Hearing Aid Audiology journal that I wrote earlier this year, and the contact details will be at the end of the video clip. So moving on to how we use the box. The box for us really is used when the client gets to a decision-making point within the consultation. So it usually would be after the clinical testing, after audiometry, after the audiogram has been fed back, and possibly even after the client has been listening to sounds through demonstration hearing aids. If the client expresses a reluctance to make a decision or a reluctance to move forward, then quite often we will use the box, listing very much the pros and cons of life as it is at the moment and life as it is believed to be with the hearing instruments. One of the big things that we have in the UK is our biggest competitor is our National Health Service, which still provides hearing instruments free at the point of delivery to clients. And so typically how we use the box, and it's just a slight adaptation, is we draw the comparisons between the advantages and costs of using the national provision, and also the advantages and costs of private hearing instruments. And when I say costs, we focus more on the psychological costs than we do on the financial costs. So costs would include things like limited choice, a lack of a bespoke tailor-made service, as being the reasons why the client may not want to take the national healthcare route. When using the box tool, our hearing aid dispensers will especially use emotional language, emotive phraseology to accentuate the positive benefits of hearing instruments and the positive benefits of doing business with our company, so that there is no doubt at the end that the pros for private hearing greatly outweigh any potential concerns that the client may have had, and equally to make sure that the client is really bought into any concerns or difficulties they would have for not taking the action. So we would usually construct the box in such a way that the positive effect of taking action is in the top left-hand quadrant, because that's where clients read first, and that's the thing that we really want to keep bringing them back to. Regarding the circle tool, we would suggest, and again we ask, that each of our dispensers carries with them a laminated circle. So it's the IDA Institute's circle, as we've seen printed in the materials, laminated as part of their case. The way in which we operate this is, depending on the patient's or the client's attitude, we get the client and the dispenser through discussion to agree where the client is sitting on the circle at that moment in time. And this helps the client recognise that they are on a journey and that there are steps to be taken in this journey. One of the key questions that the dispenser would ask when they've identified exactly in which segment the client is currently sitting is the question, what would need to happen for you to take the next step? This usefully helps to move the client on when they're at the seeking information stage, and it's also fairly useful when somebody is in denial or in some stages of denial, in helping them recognise that this is a process that many people or most people go through, and therefore whatever they're feeling at that moment in time is quite natural and quite normal. We have identified that the circle can also be helpful at any other point of the consultation, particularly at the fitting stage, follow-up and rehabilitation. Again, when we're trying to help clients realise that what they're on is a journey that has a very clear start point, very clear steps that they have gone through, and to get them to the point of hearing aids integrated into their life is this process. And recognising where they are in that process helps them understand the steps that they've already completed successfully, and helps them realise that there's a great chance of overcoming any challenges that they feel in the path ahead. So what have we identified as the clinical benefits? Well, I think we have identified that hearing aid dispensers sometimes find that their clients get stuck somewhere within the consultation process. And having the motivational tools to use to help unstick the client has definitely been a benefit that our hearing aid dispensers have reported. In some situations, a highly commercial person might in the past have backed away and almost cut the consultation short if they feel that the client has not yet been ready to proceed. And what we have found is just by taking a few minutes to perhaps use one of the tools just helps the client make that next step, and therefore the consultation gets back on track and progresses to not only the client being helped, which is obviously one of the outcomes, but secondly becomes a successful consultation for the hearing aid dispenser. One of the things that we found through our trainees was where trainees are taking time to actually use the tools, clients are reporting having a better experience in that consultation than perhaps a shorter consultation that will naturally be carried out by one of the more experienced hearing aid dispensers. So what we've learned as well is that the use of the IDA tools gives a much more professional feel to the consultation that the clinician is carrying out, and perhaps is closer to some of the experiences that the client would have with another healthcare professional. So what about the tangible business benefits? For us in the UK, all of the benefit is anecdotal. We do not collect metrics in terms of which dispensers are more successful because they are using the IDA tools and which ones are not using them, and whether that makes a difference. What we do have is the anecdotal evidence from the people who claim to be using them on a frequent basis, that it enhances their consultation. That perhaps would lead me on to talk a little bit about how our clinical staff respond. And I think it's fair to say that we have two distinct different personalities of people who become hearing aid dispensers in the UK. Both of these different personalities are successful. We have people who, by their very nature, are commercial, sales-orientated people, and these people have to focus very much on the clinical and compliance elements of the consultation. Here in the UK, we are a regulated profession, regulated by a government body, and for our very highly commercial people, the challenge is about compliance to ensure they comply with the standards of code and conduct expected in the profession. These people, by their very nature, tend not to be overly process driven, and our experience is it's more of a challenge to get these people to use the IDA tools. Our other group of dispensers who are equally as successful are the ones who are essentially clinicians. They are process orientated, highly structured individuals, and they want to do the best they can to enhance their clinical practice. That enhancement very frequently produces the level of sales at the other end which we the company want. It's just a different way in which the person is getting to the same end result. However, because this group of people tend to be highly structured, they're process orientated individuals, their desire to want to use things like the motivational tools is much higher, and therefore they relate to them and use them more frequently as part of their practice. So they see it as part of an integrated structure, and rather than use the tools on every single consultation, the tools will exist for all of our dispensers, essentially in their case, and they can use them at the appropriate moment based upon when they themselves feel it will help move the consultation forward. I guess the big learning point that we had in implementing IDA tools was really around getting our hearing aid dispensers to appreciate where they sit pretty much on the circle. So let me explain what I mean by that. An experienced hearing aid dispenser will have their own preferred ways of doing things, and therefore with any new process or new set of tools introduced, will tend to deny that they're going to be of any benefit, will tend to pull back from wanting to take those steps. And getting our dispensers to realise that use of the tools and implementing and integrating the tools into your consultation is in fact a very similar process. It's a behaviour change process very similar to that which the client goes through when they start to implement the use of hearing aids into their life. So getting the hearing aid dispenser to recognise what's their motivation towards using the tools, again using the line, getting the dispenser themselves to construct a box, what they feel the benefits are of using the box compared to the advantages of not using the box in their current consultation, and finally getting that hearing aid dispenser to recognise where they sit on this journey of integration of this new behaviour. And as I say, that can be easily achieved, we feel, by the dispenser putting themselves onto a modified version of the circle. So in summary, what I would say is we have found the use of the motivational tools, the line, the box and the circle beneficial. Different individuals will have got different amounts of benefit from it. The key for us has been to allow the hearing aid dispenser the flexibility to have the tools within their case so that they can use them as they feel appropriate during the consultation. We have backed away from any solid rigid structure or any mandate that says they have to be used in all consultations. I think in the main clinicians will find ways of introducing either all of the tools or some of the tools some of the time, and that's pretty much how we've used it here in the UK. I mentioned earlier an article which I wrote, which is based upon a modified line tool, and if anybody would like to have a copy of that, then contact details will be provided at the end of this video. Meanwhile, I hope you found this of interest, and enjoy the rest of your workshop. Thank you.